Right. So today we're going to dive deep into something I think everybody struggles with, and that is staying motivated.
It's one of those things we think we all know so much about, but
Oh, yeah.
then you dig into the research and it's
Right.
way more complex
Yeah. Yeah.
and fascinating than you might think.
I think so too. And, we've got a ton of research here. It blends practical tips with kind of mindset shifts and things like that. So,
Yeah. Yeah, it's not just a bunch of to-do lists.
Exactly.
It really is like getting in your head and figuring out
yeah.
how
How the things all work.
Make it work for us.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think first let's define what we mean by motivation,
Yeah,
because I think it's more than just like that initial burst of energy.
absolutely. Yeah, motivation is that driving force that propels us, toward our goals,
Right.
but it needs direction.
Okay.
Without that clear target. It's like having a powerful engine with no steering wheel.
So the goals are like the GPS
The gas.
for our
It's
motivation.
a great way to put it. Yeah.
I like that. Okay, so we've got the goals, we've got the, our motivation is pointed in the right direction,
Right.
but even with the best GPS, we all know we're going to hit some roadblocks.
Oh, yeah.
So how do we deal with those inevitable challenges without losing steam?
That's where I think mindset comes in.
Okay. Yeah.
Thinking of it as choosing to see those roadblocks not as dead ends, but as detours that might actually lead us to even better routes.
Oh, I like that. So instead of being discouraged, looking for the opportunity and the challenge.
Yeah, and even during those tough times, focusing on what's good, what we can learn, or, even just finding the humor in the situation
Right.
can really dramatically shift our energy. It's like, you're on that road trip and you get off the main highway,
Right.
you have to take that detour, but it turns out to be this beautiful scenic route.
I love the scenic route.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got the goals, we've got the right mindset,
Right.
we're ready to kind of hit the road, but how do we turn that into daily action?
Yeah.
And this is where I think habits and routines come in, right?
You got to think of habits as those actions we do so consistently, they become almost automatic.
Right.
Like, brushing our teeth.
Right.
Building positive habits, especially those that are tied to our goals,
Yeah.
creates that structure and support.
It's like setting it up on auto pay, so you don't even have to think about it.
Exactly. Yeah.
How do we make these habits stick? Because we talk about willpower.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's a finite resource sometimes.
Yeah. And that's the beauty of habits is once those habits are formed, they actually require less willpower.
Oh, interesting.
And routines are kind of like, power-up combos for habits.
Okay.
So a morning routine, for example, can really set the tone for your whole day,
Right.
making those healthy choices feel much more natural.
So the more we do it, even when we don't wanna,
Yeah.
it eventually becomes more effortless.
Exactly. And as those habits solidify,
Mm.
they free up our mental energy
Oh.
for tackling the bigger challenges.
I like that.
It's a real virtuous cycle.
Okay, I'm with you. But what about when we hit a wall?
Yeah,
Those times when even our best routines
Yeah.
aren't enough.
absolutely.
How do we kind of re-energize and find that spark again?
Sometimes we need a little inspiration.
Yeah.
Those stories of people overcoming obstacles,
Oh, yeah.
achieving amazing things?
Right.
Those really remind us what's possible and can reignite that fire.
If they can do it, maybe I can do it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. But I think sometimes we need more than just inspiration.
Yeah.
Sometimes we need someone to believe in us.
Absolutely.
So how does encouragement play into this whole thing?
Encouragement, whether it's from others or even from ourselves, is incredibly powerful. It builds our confidence,
Right.
helps us believe in our abilities, which is crucial when the going gets tough.
It's like having your own personal cheerleader.
Exactly. Yeah.
Saying, you got this.
Yeah, and celebrating those achievements. Even the small ones plays a huge role in maintaining that positive momentum.
Okay.
Each small win is a step towards the bigger goal.
Right.
And acknowledging those steps reinforces that belief in ourselves.
It's like the milestones on a road trip, right?
Yes,
So
exactly.
you don't get discouraged because the destination's still so far away.
That's a great way to put it.
Okay. So we've got mindset, we've got habits,
Yeah,
encouragement, celebration.
right.
It feels like we're building this motivation puzzle.
Absolutely.
What happens when we are facing this challenge
Yeah.
that just feels so big,
Yeah.
so overwhelming? How do we even begin to tackle that, especially when, motivation is low?
That's a great question, and it leads us to one of the most practical aspects of motivation, and that is setting realistic goals.
Okay.
Unrealistic goals can be so demotivating
Oh, absolutely.
because they set us up for failure right from the start.
So it's not just about dreaming big. It's about breaking those dreams down into
Correct.
steps that we can actually achieve.
Exactly. Instead of trying to climb the mountain in a single leap, we focus on conquering, those smaller hills along the way.
So taking those big, audacious goals and turning them into smaller, more manageable.
Exactly. Precisely. And by setting those realistic goals,
Okay.
we create a path that feels achievable.
Right.
And that, in turn, fuels our motivation.
Okay. Loving this approach. So it's like creating a roadmap
Yes.
with those milestones
Exactly.
that we can check off and that keeps our motivation going.
Exactly.
But even with the best roadmap,
yeah.
I know we're going to hit times when we feel stressed,
Always.
overwhelmed.
Yeah.
How do we manage those times and keep our motivation from kind of fizzling out?
That's where self-care becomes so essential,
Okay.
finding those healthy ways to manage that stress.
Okay.
Like spending time in nature, practicing mindfulness,
Right.
or even just engaging in hobbies we enjoy.
Right.
These all help to prevent burnout and keep our energy levels up.
So it's not selfish to take that time for ourselves.
It's not selfish at all. In fact, it's essential.
Okay.
Think of it like refueling your car.
Okay.
You can't expect it to reach your destination if you never stop to fill up the tank.
That's a great point.
And self-care is the fuel for our motivation engine.
So we need to take care of ourselves if we're going to be able to do all these things.
Yeah. And sometimes the best way to reignite that motivation
Okay.
is to simply take action even when we don't feel like it.
Wait, really? Action before motivation?
Yes.
That feels a little counterintuitive.
It does. I know, but think of it like jump-starting a car.
Okay.
Sometimes you need to get those wheels moving before the engine fully kicks in.
Okay.
And by simply starting even with a small step,
Right.
we create momentum and build energy.
So we don't wait for the perfect wave of inspiration. We just start and trust that it'll come.
Exactly. And often what we find is that motivation does follow.
Okay.
Once we get those wheels turning, our energy levels increase. Right.
Our focus sharpens.
Right.
We start to feel more engaged in the task.
It's like appetite comes with eating.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. So sometimes we just need to do it.
Exactly.
And then we'll figure out
Yeah.
that we want to keep doing it.
And this leads us to a few key qualities
Okay.
that are really essential for not just achieving success,
Okay.
but for really cultivating that inner drive that keeps propelling us forward.
I'm ready. Tell me, what are those key qualities?
Well, one of the most important qualities is persistence.
Okay. Persistence.
It's that ability to keep going even when things get tough, even when we face setbacks
right.
or we feel like giving up.
Right.
Think of persistence as a muscle that gets stronger with use.
Okay.
The more we practice pushing through those difficult moments, the better we become at handling challenges without losing motivation.
So the more we do it,
Exactly. The better we get at it.
Exactly. And persistence is really the outward expression of another crucial quality, which is determination.
Determination.
Okay. It's that unwavering resolve,
Right.
that inner fire that fuels our action
Right.
and keeps us moving towards our goals no matter what obstacles we encounter.
Persistence is like the action.
Yeah.
And determination is the feeling behind it.
Precisely.
Okay.
And here's the thing. We don't have to go it alone.
Oh, that's good.
Sometimes the most empowering thing we can do is actually ask for help.
It's so true. We do feel like we have to do it ourselves.
We do. We think we have to be superhuman,
Yes.
but seeking support can actually boost our motivation and help us overcome those challenges
Right.
much more effectively.
We don't have to do it alone.
We don't have to do it alone.
So it's like having a team
Yeah,
to help us stay motivated.
exactly. And it provides valuable insight, support, encouragement.
Yeah. It takes a village, they say.
It really does take a village.
Okay. So we've talked about, persistence, determination,
Mhm.
asking for help.
Yeah.
Let's shift gears a little bit
Okay.
and talk about some practical tips and techniques
Absolutely.
that we can use to really kind of tap into that inner drive
Yeah.
and achieve those goals.
Let's do it.
All right, so let's talk about some practical strategies
Yeah.
for boosting motivation.
Okay.
You mentioned visualization earlier.
Yeah.
What's the science behind that, and how can we use it to our advantage?
So visualization is more than just positive thinking.
Okay.
It's really about creating this vivid mental picture of achieving your goal.
Right?
And it's about engaging all your senses to make it as real as possible.
So it's not just seeing the end result. It's like
Exactly.
feeling it, experiencing it.
It's like living it in your mind.
Okay.
And the amazing thing is our brains often have trouble distinguishing between a real experience and one that's just vividly imagined.
Oh, wow.
So when we visualize success with that level of detail,
Yeah.
it can actually trick our brains into believing it's already happened.
So we're kind of pre-programming our brains for success,
Exactly.
creating these mental blueprints.
Yeah, it's like giving our brains a dress rehearsal
Okay.
for the real performance.
I like that. Okay, so visualization.
Yeah.
Adding that to my toolbox.
Yeah.
But what about our physical surroundings?
Yeah.
Can our environment actually impact our motivation?
Absolutely. Our environment has a huge impact on, our mood, our focus, our energy levels.
Right.
Think about how you feel when you're in like a really cluttered, chaotic space
Ugh, I hate that.
versus being in a clean, organized one.
I am so much more productive when
Exactly.
my space is clean.
It makes a huge difference.
Yeah,
So, a cluttered environment can create mental clutter,
right.
which just makes us feel overwhelmed and stressed.
Absolutely.
But when we create a space that feels, calm, inspiring, and conducive to productivity,
Right.
that supports our goals and boosts our motivation.
So it's not just about aesthetics, it's about function.
It's about creating an environment that aligns with your aspirations.
Yeah.
And helps you stay focused.
And I would add to that,
yes.
get outside.
Nature is so powerful.
Such a reset
It is, yeah. It's like hitting the reset button.
for your brain.
Yeah, for sure.
But there are going to be days
Yeah.
when even our best workspaces,
Mm-hmm.
a walk in nature can't shake that feeling of blah.
Absolutely.
What are some practical tips for those days when motivation is just low?
Well, one of the most effective strategies is to break down those large, overwhelming tasks
Okay.
into smaller, more manageable chunks.
Yeah.
It's like, that old saying, how do you eat an elephant?
Right.
One bite at a time.
One bite at a time. I love that.
So break it down.
Yeah.
Make it manageable.
Smaller steps.
And sometimes we just need to give ourselves permission to take a break.
Oh, yeah.
It's like hitting the pause button on a movie.
Right.
You step away from whatever's causing you stress.
Right.
Do something you enjoy, and you come back to it with renewed energy and a fresh perspective.
I used to think that taking a break was like a sign of weakness,
I know so many people think that.
but it's so important
This
to just reset.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so speaking of staying focused and all that,
Yeah.
let's talk about positive self-talk
Oh, yes.
instead of, beating ourselves up.
Yeah, don't listen to that inner critic.
Yeah, how can we be more positive?
Focus on your strengths, celebrate your accomplishments, and encourage yourself along the way.
Be our own cheerleader.
Exactly.
That's
Be
so-
your own best friend.
So I think it's important to remember, too,
Yeah,
that everyone's journey is different.
absolutely.
What works for one person may not work for another.
There's no one size fits all
Yeah.
when it comes to motivation.
So it's about experimenting and figuring out what works.
It's about finding what resonates with you.
Right.
And creating your own personalized toolkit.
Your own personal toolkit.
Exactly.
Okay, so there's no magic formula. It's all about finding what works for us.
Exactly. And it takes practice and patience.
Absolutely.
It's not something that happens overnight. It's
Yeah.
an ongoing journey.
Okay, so we've got visualization, creating a supportive environment,
Yeah.
breaking down tasks,
Yeah.
taking breaks, positive self-talk.
Yes.
I want to circle back to something you mentioned.
Okay.
Action before motivation.
Yes.
Can you elaborate on that a bit more?
Yeah, so this concept is so empowering because it reminds us that we don't have to wait for motivation to strike
Okay.
before we take action.
So don't wait for the perfect moment.
Don't wait, just do it.
Just get started.
Exactly.
Okay.
And often what we find is that the motivation does follow.
Okay.
Once we get those wheels turning, our energy levels increase, our focus sharpens, we start to feel more engaged in the task.
I've heard that called appetite comes with eating.
Exactly.
Okay, so sometimes we just need to start and then we'll realize we like it.
Exactly. And that first step doesn't have to be huge.
Right.
It could be, spending 5 minutes working on a project,
Right.
going for a short walk, or even just making a list.
Just do something.
Just do something. Break the inertia.
Okay, so I like this idea of action before motivation,
It can be a real game changer.
especially on those days where I'm just not feeling it.
Yeah. And remember, it's all about finding what works best for you
Okay.
and your individual circumstances.
So experimentation is key.
Experimentation is key.
All right, I like that. So as we're wrapping up this part of our deep dive,
Yeah.
what's one final takeaway?
Okay. So as we're wrapping up, I want to leave you with this thought-provoking question.
Okay.
How can you become a source of inspiration and encouragement for others?
Oh, that's good.
Because sometimes helping someone else achieve their goals
Right.
can be incredibly motivating for ourselves.
Yeah, so if you're feeling unmotivated, maybe go out and motivate somebody else.
Exactly.
We've covered so much ground in this deep dive.
We really have. It's amazing how much there is to unpack.
Yeah, from the science of habits to the power of visualization and even taking action before motivation kicks in.
Yeah, I love that concept. It seems so counterintuitive.
Yeah, but it makes sense.
It does.
Once you start doing it.
Yeah, and it all kind of weaves together.
Right, it's not just one thing.
Exactly. It's not a one-size-fits-all.
It's like building this whole...
Yeah, like an ecosystem.
Yeah, an ecosystem for motivation.
Yeah, and it's personalized.
That works for you.
Exactly.
I like that, it's like we don't expect to just eat one superfood and
Right.
suddenly be healthy.
Yeah, it's a whole...
It's about the habits and the routines.
This is a lifestyle.
Yeah, and those little boosts along the way.
Exactly. And speaking of boosts, I think we should emphasize something we've kind of touched on.
Yeah.
Celebrating those wins.
Yeah.
No matter how small.
This is something I struggle with
Yeah.
because I feel like I'm always on to the next goal.
I know, me too. It's so easy to just keep moving.
Yeah.
But we gotta pause
Yeah.
and acknowledge how far we've come.
Because those small victories are like,
Fuel.
yeah, they keep us going.
Yeah, it's like those milestones on a road trip, It's like, oh, look, we made it this far. Okay, yeah. So even if it's just crossing something off our to-do list,
Yeah, exactly.
we should acknowledge that.
Celebrate it
Yeah.
because it creates that positive reinforcement.
Okay.
It strengthens those neural pathways.
I love the neural pathways.
Yeah, they're important.
I'm going to be more intentional about celebrating those wins.
I think we all should.
What about those times, though,
Yeah.
when motivation just disappears?
Oh, yeah.
When even our best strategies aren't working?
It's inevitable.
What do we do?
That's like the weather, you can't expect sunshine every day.
Right.
So how do we navigate those rainy days?
Yeah, how do we not get discouraged?
Well, one helpful strategy is to kind of revisit those times when you were feeling motivated.
Okay.
What was different then? What were you working on? Who were you surrounding yourself with?
Okay, so we're reverse engineering.
Exactly. You're like a detective,
Yeah.
figuring out what made you tick.
Figuring out my own motivation.
Yeah, and then try to recreate those conditions, even when things aren't ideal.
Exactly.
It's like having that toolkit
Yeah, personalized toolkit.
that we can pull from.
Exactly.
And I think it's important to remember
Yeah.
that, motivation isn't a destination.
It's not a destination.
It's a journey
It's a journey.
with its own peaks and valleys.
And it's okay to be gentle with ourselves along the way.
Yes, self-compassion.
Absolutely.
So as we wrap up this deep dive on staying motivated,
Yeah.
what's one final takeaway?
The power to stay motivated lies within each of us.
Oh, I like that.
It's about cultivating that inner drive, believing in ourselves,
Yeah.
finding strategies that resonate with our unique needs and goals.
Love it.
And remember, it's a journey, not a race.
Absolute.
So be patient and celebrate those small wins.
Beautifully said. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into motivation. We hope you found it insightful and empowering, and remember, you've got this.